Well, let's stay with this story and get some reaction now. A DA Member of Parliament, Ian Cameron, who also chairs the Police Portfolio Committee there, says Malema's conviction confirms that his party's assertion that the EFF leader embodies a culture of chaos and violence. He joins us now to tell us a little bit more about that statement. Mr. Cameron, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. Let's start with the guilty verdict on a fellow member of Parliament. Ordinarily, what would this mean for parliamentary processes?
Well, I think, first of all, we've welcomed the conviction. We need to be careful, and I don't know how Parliament will approach it, but I think it's important that steps are considered, because I think it can bring Parliament into disrepute, and it can create even further mistrust in the institution of Parliament. But nevertheless, I think that which Mr. Malema has symbolized through the way that he reacted, by also singing "Kill the Boer" as soon as he left court today, it all sends a message of significant arrogance and almost giving the impression as though he is above the law. And obviously, the rule of law is critical for South Africa to have a sustainable future. So it would be interesting to see what happens in the future.
Mr. Malema embodies or symbolizes an attitude of arrogance. These are your words. You also go on to say that he, including his party, embody a culture of chaos and violence. Let's understand a little bit more of why you have chosen that kind of a description.
Yes, I think there are a few things. We've previously seen quite a few times where he himself and certain members of that party have made very intimidating statements with regards to the state, with regards to private individuals and people that he differs from politically. The fact that someone discharges a firearm in a public setting without lawful cause is very worrying, especially when it comes to something like an assault rifle. I think furthermore, the fact that they blatantly lied about it supposedly being a prop, a toy gun. I think Dr. Ndlozi, when he was still in the EFF, said that it was a part of the fireworks or some ridiculous excuse that we saw. All creates even further doubt around their actual legitimacy. And again, it comes back to the hate speech we see in Kill the Boer. There's no place in South Africa for that kind of behavior. We need to build a future for people in this country that respect the rule of law and make sure that the rule of law is upheld. We need to respect each other, and we shouldn't be polarizing people even further. So I think this is a very important message that is being sent by this conviction, and hopefully it will be a message to those who try and follow this populist type of culture, encouraging violence, singing about violence, and that we rather build a future where the rule of law is upheld.
His reading of the verdict today, this is Mr. Malema, is that this was always the point, that he is the target. And he's a target because there's a racist agenda, and part of that agenda is to see him go behind bars. And he goes further to say that is demonstrated by accused number 2, who has not been found guilty of the charges, and yet he is the person that handed him the gun. If that's the case, the entire court case should have collapsed. What do you make of that assertion?
Well, I think that Mr. Snyman, according to my knowledge, wasn't charged with all the same charges as Mr. Malema. That being said, regarding the race comment, I mean, to be honest with you, if you listen to the verdict being given over the last 3 days, there were people of all creeds, cultures, and more involved in the investigation, the prosecution, etc. So, to us, it's about the rule of law and nothing else. I think race is irrelevant in it. And he put himself in the situation. It's the same question as him saying someone else handed him the firearm. That may be so, but he still took the firearm. He used the firearm. If someone tells him to jump off a roof of a house, is he going to do it because someone told him to jump off that roof? Hopefully not. And that is the question we need to ask. He had a choice to make. And it's too easy to point fingers and make all sorts of assertions now. The point is that the evidence showed us that it was a real firearm, that he did discharge it in a public space unlawfully, and thus the result or the conclusion of being convicted.
He's launched a scathing attack on the presiding officer, Toinette Olivier, berating her for almost displaying her being ill-prepared in delivering this judgment. He says that she couldn't even read her own handwriting, and that had this been a black female judge, there would have been all sorts of things said about her. What do you make of those comments around the judge and how, or rather the magistrate, and how she handled herself during the reading of this verdict?
Sure. So I saw during especially the second morning, and even the first day, that she was struggling with her throat and complained that her throat was bothering her. And that's why she broke here and there to get some medication for her throat and so on. But she pushed through. I myself felt frustrated with the slow rate at which things were happening, but it still happened, and the process followed. Race, again, is in my opinion, irrelevant. This is about the rule of law and what the evidence showed us, and the evidence showed us that Mr. Malema discharged a real firearm. It's that simple. And everything that has been, the picture that has been painted around that. With regards to her background, again, or her race, I think it's irrelevant. We've got extremely competent magistrates all over the country of all different races and cultural backgrounds, and it should not play a role. We should be building a non-racial society, and we need to push, as I said earlier, to uphold the rule of law. Look, I think also it was expected that he would react the way that he does. We expected some kind of a populist type of reaction. That's how we've got to know him before. And I think it's a little bit of an escape from taking responsibility for his actions. And essentially, that's what the law is meant to do. And we will now see in January what the consequences are for his guilty conviction.
Let's talk about AfriForum for a moment. They pursued this matter relentlessly, and they've now achieved an outcome. What do you think their agenda was here in pursuing this?
Sure. So, I mean, the charges were laid in 2018 already. I think it was simple that someone can't conduct themselves in that way. I know that they have had several other cases regarding Mr. Malema as well, amongst others the fact that he keeps on singing "Kill the Boer." And obviously those have been handled in different courts or in different institutions. And the point is just this formed part of that. But in essence, the charges, according to my understanding, that were laid in 2018 with specifically were regarding the discharging of a firearm in a public space without lawful reason to do so. And then there were several others that also form part of the Firearm Control Act. And I didn't see or hear anything contrary to that. And those were the charges that he was eventually found guilty for.
Finally, Ian, the ad hoc committee that is going to look into what General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi said in July of this year in terms of South Africa's criminal justice system possibly being captured by criminal elements. You and Mr. Malema serve in that committee. You've heard some choice words for him here tonight. You've called him chaotic and that he embodies a culture of violence. He's arrogant. Do you believe that you are capable as a committee to work respectfully together, and I'm not going to say work in unison because you obviously will probably hold different views, but ultimately this committee will produce a respectable and credible outcome?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a few things to say about that. So far, Mr. Malema, in my opinion, has made pretty good contributions to the ad hoc committee, and you know, one must give credit where credit is due. So we all have political differences, and I might feel a certain way about things, as I've just shared. And we've seen the way people handle themselves in Parliament and even outside of that. But they could potentially fill a specific role or duty successfully elsewhere. So I don't think it's a problem when you look at Parliament. You know, generally speaking, it's a very, very diverse group of people in the National Assembly as well as the National Council of Provinces. And we have a specific job to do, and that is the job that the people elected us for. And we don't really have a choice. We need to make sure that whichever committee, whether it's the ad hoc committee or another, that we work in, that we are able to do our job successfully and to the best of our ability.
Yeah, talking about that, I'm letting you go, but I can't before I ask this question. General Mkhwanazi came before Parliament long before the 6th July press conference that he held. And the general consensus, at least now, is that once again, Parliament demonstrated a failure, a complete failure, to follow up on matters that he had tabled before your committee. It's not the first time that the work of parliamentarians would receive such backlash. Look back at what the Zondo Commission said about Parliament. Were you caught napping, or you deliberately turned a blind eye to what he told your committee?
So neither of those. I would like to take you through that. That was on the 5th of March, and there was another sitting on the 2nd of April. To give you background, General Mkhwanazi didn't utilize any form of a presentation. There was no supporting documentation or corroborating evidence to substantiate any of the claims that were made. A lot of his submission took the form of a specific narrative that he sought to explain, which was in defense of his general conduct, including responses to media reporting, internal disputes within the South African Police Service, and allegations of smear campaigns. What was interesting to me when I looked at specifically General van Rooyen, that also made this assertion that Parliament didn't act, was that she had clearly not put in the effort, like many others, to go and watch what happened on the 5th of March. You know, the irony of it all is that people say, but what did Parliament do? Now, if there was something of such significance on the 5th of March, why did the media not report on it? Why was that not highlighted? It was a public meeting. And then furthermore, you know, it's very important that we also say that the evidence, or the absence rather, of supporting records, exhibits, or evidence, or any other form of verification really limited the committee's ability to test the accuracy of any of the assertions. So I then said on the 2nd of April we would continue a discussion, which we did, but that complicated the distinction between the different matters, and a lot of those questions of governance and operational interference, you know, made it, or were mostly outside of the scope of the committee. And so I can go on with the list. You know, in terms of the political killing task team, it was specifically notable that General Mkhwanazi confirmed to us that the PKTT remained operational, including in Gauteng. And he also suggested that could have explained the backlash against the task team. The absence of clarification, again, from senior leadership left the committee without any form of verification of these claims, particularly regarding the PKTT. And the reason I say that is because the minister, both the deputy ministers, General Kunazi, General Masemola, and General Kumalo, were in that meeting, and no one argued with each other. Everyone seemed to agree. No one countered or contradicted anyone. So there was no reason at that stage for Parliament in any way to see that there was any form of conflict. So, I mean, I would love to share this even more and in more detail, but our time will come when we will go through this document and share exactly what Parliament has done and, again, what Parliament's mandate is. But we can't interfere in operational matters. And that won't change unless Parliament's mandate is adjusted in the Constitution.
Ian Cameron, thank you very much for your time.